Maya Caldwell stood at the entrance of the grand ballroom, her heart racing as she adjusted the strap of her elegant gown. The room was a whirlwind of glimmering chandeliers, swirling gowns, and the soft murmur of high society mingling with the clinking of crystal glasses. She took a deep breath, steeling herself against the familiar weight of her surname, a label that carried both privilege and expectation. Tonight was not just another charity gala, it was a chance to show the world and herself that she was more than just the daughter of a financial magnate and a renowned art curator. As she stepped into the room, her eyes darted across the sea of familiar faces, some of whom wore expressions of envy, while others masked their disdain with polite smiles. Maya had grown accustomed to the scrutiny. It was a part of her life, a constant reminder that she was not just Maya, but Maya Caldwell, a symbol of wealth and influence. Yet tonight she was determined to find a moment of genuine connection, a fleeting escape from the facade she wore like a second skin. "Maya, there you are." A voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to see her best friend Lila making her way through the crowd, her own gown a cascade of vibrant red. Lila's enthusiasm was infectious, and Maya couldn't help but return a smile. "Lila." "You look stunning," Maya exclaimed, embracing her friend. "Are you ready for another night of pretending to be someone we're not?" Lila laughed, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Oh, come on. Just think of the free champagne. And the chance to people watch. Plus, I heard there's a new architect in town who's supposed to be quite the catch." "Really?" Maya raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "Do I need to rescue you from another potential suitor?" "Maybe," Lila teased, winking at her. "But right now I'm more interested in finding you someone who can actually see you, not just the Caldwell brand." Maya's heart skipped a beat at the thought, but she quickly brushed it aside. The last thing she needed was to get tangled up in another relationship where she'd have to prove her worth. "Let's just enjoy the evening," she replied, trying to sound nonchalant. As they mingled, Maya's gaze fell upon a figure standing somewhat apart from the crowd. He was tall, with tousled dark hair and an easy smile that seemed to draw people in without effort. There was something refreshingly genuine about him, a stark contrast to the polished, rehearsed personas around them. He was leaning casually against the wall, engaged in conversation, but his eyes wandered thoughtfully over the gathered crowd. "Who's that?" Maya asked, nodding subtly toward the man. "Damon Sinclair." Lila replied, her interest piqued. "He's an architect who's been working on some revitalization projects in the city. I heard he's not just about the buildings, he actually cares about the communities." Maya felt a flicker of curiosity ignite within her. "He sounds different," she said, her voice laced with intrigue. "Want me to introduce you?" Lila asked, already pulling Maya in the direction of the enigmatic figure. Maya hesitated. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the chance to meet someone who might see beyond her family name. "Okay, but be subtle about it," she murmured, aware of the crowd's gaze that seemed to weigh down on her every move. As they approached, Damon's attention shifted to them, and he offered a warm smile that made Maya's heart race. "Ladies," he greeted, his voice smooth and inviting, "enjoying the gala?" "It's certainly a spectacle," Lila replied, her charm in full force, "but we were hoping to find something a bit more genuine amidst all the glitz." Damon chuckled, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "Good luck with that. But I have to say, authenticity can be found in the most unexpected places." Maya felt an unexpected connection as she met his gaze, as if he were genuinely interested in what she had to say. "And what do you find authentic about tonight?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "Well," he replied, leaning slightly closer, "I see a lot of masks, but every once in a while you catch a glimpse of the real person underneath. Like the two of you." His smile widened, and Maya felt a rush of warmth flood her cheeks. "Oh, please," Lila laughed, rolling her eyes playfully. "We're just trying to survive the evening." Damon turned his focus back to Maya. "And what about you? What's your story?" His interest felt genuine, and Maya found herself opening up, sharing snippets of her life, her career, and her aspirations. For the first time in ages, she felt seen not just as a Caldwell, but as a woman with dreams and ambitions. As the evening progressed, they found themselves engrossed in conversation, discussing everything from architecture to personal dreams. Damon's passion for revitalizing communities resonated with Maya, and she was struck by how different he was from the men she usually encountered. He listened intently, his eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that made her feel valued. "Well, I think it's commendable what you're doing," Maya said, her heart racing. "I wish more people in your field thought about the impact they have on communities." "Nobody ever said it was an easy path," Damon replied, his tone thoughtful, "but it's worth it when you see the difference you can make." Maya felt a connection growing between them, one that felt both thrilling and terrifying. "What about you? What do you want from all this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to create spaces that inspire and uplift," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "But I also want to build meaningful connections with people. I believe we can change things if we work together." In that moment, Maya felt a flicker of hope for something genuine and real. "You certainly have a way with words," she said, her heart fluttering in her chest. As the gala continued around them, a sense of ease settled in. For the first time in years, Maya felt a sense of possibility blooming within her. The night was filled with laughter, deep conversations, and an undeniable chemistry that was both exhilarating and frightening. However, as the evening drew to a close, Maya felt a familiar shadow creeping back into her mind, the weight of her family's expectations, the pressure to maintain a facade of perfection. She glanced around the ballroom, the glitzy crowd morphing back into the symbols of her status. But Damon's presence remained like a bright flame drawing her in. "Can I take you out for coffee sometime?" he asked, his expression earnest. Maya's heart raced at the prospect, but a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. "Are you sure you want to? I'm not exactly an easy person to get to know," she replied, a hint of vulnerability creeping into her voice. Damon smiled, his gaze unwavering. "I'm not afraid of a challenge. Besides, I'd like to see the real you, not just the version that everyone expects you to be." She felt a rush of warmth at his words, as if he were peeling away the layers of pretense that had suffocated her for so long. "Okay, let's do it," she agreed, her heart pounding with anticipation. As they exchanged numbers, Maya felt a sense of hope blooming within her. For the first time in a long while, she believed she might have found someone who could see past the weight of her name and into her soul. Little did she know this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, trust, and herself. Maya stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the straps of her elegant navy blue dress. The fabric clung to her curves, accentuating her figure, without being overly revealing. She had chosen this dress for a reason. It was sophisticated, yet understated perfect, for the upscale restaurant where she'd be dining with Damon that evening. As she applied the finishing touches to her makeup, she felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Tonight was meant to be a celebration of their love, a chance to reconnect after the whirlwind of their recent wedding. "Are you ready, love?" Damon called from the living room, his voice smooth and inviting. Maya took a deep breath, attempting to banish the nagging feeling in her gut. "Just a second," she replied, forcing a smile. She couldn't shake the thought that something was off, but she pushed it aside. Damon had always been charming, and she had to remind herself that they were starting a new chapter together. As she made her way to the living room, she found Damon standing by the door, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that highlighted his tall frame. The moment he saw her, his eyes lit up with admiration. "Wow, you look stunning," he said, his voice genuine. "Thank you," Maya replied, her heart fluttering with warmth. She walked toward him and he pulled her into an embrace, his hands resting possessively on her waist. They arrived at the restaurant, its grand entrance adorned with twinkling lights. The ambiance was perfect, with soft jazz music playing in the background and the scent of gourmet cuisine wafting through the air. Maya felt a thrill of anticipation as they were conducidos to una mesa elegante. As they settled in, Damon ordered a bottle of wine without consulting her, a small but telling gesture that made her feel slightly uneasy. "You trust my taste, right?" he asked, raising an eyebrow playfully. "Of course," she replied, forcing a smile. "I just thought we could pick something together." Damon chuckled softly. We'll toast to your exceptionally good taste tonight, Maya. Just relax and enjoy. The food arrived and they began to eat, the conversation flowing easily at first. They shared stories about their lives, and Maya felt herself relaxing, laughing at Damon's jokes. However, as the evening progressed, she noticed Damon's comments taking a more passive-aggressive tone. "You know, sometimes I think you just like to be right all the time," he remarked casually, his fork twirling a piece of pasta. Maya's smile faltered. "What do you mean by that?" "Oh, you know," he said with a dismissive wave. "You always have. To have the last word, don't you?" She frowned, feeling the warmth of the evening beginning to fade. "I just want to have a discussion, Damon. It's not about being right." He shrugged, a hint of annoyance flashing across his face. "Let's just enjoy the night, okay?" Maya nodded, trying to shake off the discomfort. She glanced around the restaurant, noticing the elegant ambiance and the couples sharing intimate moments. She longed for that feeling of connection, the kind she had thought she'd found with Damon. As the main course came to an end, Maya decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "Damon, can we talk about something?" "Sure," he replied, leaning back in his chair, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "I feel like we haven't really talked about our expectations since the wedding." She began searching for the right words. "I want to make sure we're on the same page." Damon's expression hardened slightly, but he masked it with a smile. "What do you mean?" "I just think it's important we communicate openly. Like, I've noticed some things that worry me." She continued, her voice steady. "Like how you've been making decisions without asking me." He leaned forward, playful glint in his eye. "You're being a bit dramatic. Don't you think it's just dinner, Maya? I'm taking care of you. But I want to be involved too. This is our life, not just yours," she insisted, her heart racing. His demeanor shifted, and the atmosphere around them grew tense. "You think you're the only one with a say in this relationship. I'm trying to provide for us both." Maya felt her stomach drop. "That's not what I meant. I just want to be included." "I think you're overreacting and it's exhausting." He shot back, his voice low but sharp. Maya stared at him, hurt and confused. "I just want us to be partners, Damon." He rolled his eyes, the playful charm replaced with something darker. "Partners? Is that what you think this is? Because I'm the one who's working hard to make sure we have a future." The tension hung between them like a thick fog, and Maya's heart raced. She had wanted to express her feelings, but now she felt trapped in a conversation that was spiraling out of control. "Maybe I should just let you handle everything," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But I don't want to lose who I am in the process." Damon's expression hardened further, and his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You need to be careful with how you talk to me, Maya. You're my wife now, and things work differently." Maya felt the air leave her lungs. "What do you mean by that?" "Just remember who you're dealing with." "I know how to get what I want," he replied, his tone icy. A chill crept down her spine. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. She couldn't believe the man she had married was showing this side of himself. In a desperate attempt to change the subject and lighten the mood, Maya said, "How about dessert? I heard they have the best chocolate mousse here." Damon waved his hand dismissively. "I don't see the point. You'll probably just overthink it like you do with everything else." Maya felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she swallowed them back. She refused to let him see her break. "Let's just talk about it, Damon. Please." But he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "Fine. Go ahead, talk all you want." The waiter arrived with the dessert, and Maya forced a smile as he placed the plate in front of her. "Thank you," she said, trying to hide the tension that crackled in the air. As she picked up her fork, Damon's eyes narrowed. "You know, it's kind of ridiculous that you're even thinking about dessert right now. Isn't it a little indulgent?" Maya looked up, surprised. "It's just dessert, Damon. It's not a big deal." "Maybe you should just stick to what you know," he said, sneering slightly. "Less is more, right?" Her heart sank. She felt cornered, like there was no escaping the venom in his words. "I just wanted to enjoy the evening with you," she replied softly, trying to keep her voice steady. Damon's expression darkened, and in a sudden outburst he slammed his hand on the table, causing the silverware to rattle. "You think this is a joke? You're acting like a spoiled little girl." Maya's breath hitched. The restaurant around them seemed to fade away, the sounds of clinking glasses and soft chatter becoming an indistinct background noise. "Damon, please," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "This isn't what I wanted." He glared at her, and, in a shocking moment, he reached for the dessert plate and with a swift motion flung it at her. The chocolate mousse splattered across her face, and time seemed to freeze. Gasps erupted around them, and Maya sat there stunned as the humiliation washed over her. "Look at yourself." Damon spat, his voice laced with rage. "You're a mess. This is what you wanted, isn't it, to play the victim?" Maya wiped the mousse from her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The laughter and chatter of the restaurant faded into a distant murmur as all eyes were on her. "Get up. We're leaving," Damon commanded, his face a mask of anger. "No," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Maya stood up, her heart racing. She felt the weight of the stares, the shock and pity from the other diners. She was humiliated, but deep down something inside her ignited, a flicker of defiance. "Don't you dare walk away from me, Maya," Damon shouted, but she didn't look back. With her head held high, she walked toward the exit, the weight of the world on her shoulders, but a newfound sense of determination in her heart. The night had shattered her expectations, but it had also opened her eyes. She was done being a victim. As she stepped out into the cool night air, Maya took a deep breath, vowing to never let anyone treat her like that again. She glanced back at the restaurant where the laughter and clinking glasses continued, a stark contrast to the turmoil she felt inside. But one thing was clear: the fairy tale she thought she had found was nothing more than an illusion, and it was time to wake up. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the reflection in the mirror. The soft morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a warm glow on her face, but all she could see were the dark circles under her eyes and the tension etched in her features. It had been weeks since the incident at the restaurant, and the humiliation still felt fresh, like an open wound that refused to heal. She had returned to her parents' home, a sanctuary that felt both comforting and stifling. The walls that once echoed with laughter now bore witness to her silent suffering. "Are you okay, honey?" her mother Helen asked gently from the doorway, concern etched on her face. Maya turned away from the mirror, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. But as she spoke, she felt the weight of the words pressing down on her. She was tired, yes, but not just physically. She was exhausted from the emotional turmoil, the constant battle between the woman she used to be and the one Damon had tried to mold her into. "Why don't we go for a walk? It'll do you good to get some fresh air," her mother suggested, stepping into the room and sitting beside Maya on the bed. The warmth of her mother's presence was a small comfort, a reminder of the love that surrounded her, even in her darkest moments. Maya nodded slowly, appreciating the gesture. "Okay, that sounds nice." She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. Maybe a walk would help clear her mind, allow her to think without the oppressive weight of Damon's influence looming over her. As they walked through the quiet neighborhood, the familiar sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves enveloped them. The sun shone brightly, illuminating their path, but Maya felt a cloud hanging over her heart. Helen chatted about mundane things, the flowers blooming in the garden, the latest gossip from their neighbors. But Maya could barely focus. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Damon, to the way he had manipulated her life with such ease. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Maya finally ventured, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "Of course, sweetheart. Anything." Maya hesitated, searching for the right words. "Did you ever think you'd lose me? To someone like him?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. Helen sighed, her expression turning serious. "I always worried about you, Maya. You've always been so strong, but sometimes strength can make you vulnerable. You want to prove yourself, to show that you're not just your father's daughter, but that can lead you down a dangerous path." Maya's heart raced as she absorbed her mother's words. "I thought I was strong enough to handle it, Mom. I thought I was in love." Helen stopped walking, turning to face Maya. "Love should never make you feel small or powerless. It should lift you up, not tear you down." Her voice was firm, filled with a blend of concern and resolve. Maya nodded, feeling a swell of emotions within her. I didn't see it at first. I thought he was different. He made me feel special. But at what cost? Helen pressed her eyes, searching Maya's for understanding. You've lost so much of yourself in this relationship. You've let someone dictate your worth. Maya's throat tightened as she fought back tears. I know I need to take back control, but it's hard. I feel so lost. You're not lost, Maya. You're just navigating a difficult path, but you have to trust yourself. You've always been capable of so much. Helen encouraged, her hand resting gently on Maya's shoulder. As they resumed their walk, Maya felt a flicker of determination igniting within her. She had spent too long feeling trapped, too long allowing Damon to dictate her life. It was time to reclaim her power. Later that evening, after a quiet dinner filled with supportive conversations, Maya retreated to her childhood room. The familiar surroundings, adorned with posters of her favorite artists and memories of happier times, offered a sense of solace. She opened her laptop, the glow illuminating her face, as she began to search for resources on emotional abuse and manipulation. Hours passed as she delved into articles, testimonials, and support groups online. The more she read, the more clarity she gained about her situation. This wasn't just a personal struggle, it was a battle many women faced, and she wasn't alone. With each story she encountered, she felt her resolve strengthen. The next day, Maya reached out to Monica Grant, a well-known attorney who specialized in cases of emotional abuse. Their conversation was initially daunting, but as Maya spoke, recounting the events of her relationship with Damon, the weight on her shoulders began to lift. Monica listened intently, her voice steady and reassuring. Maya, it sounds like you've been through a lot, Monica said, her tone empathetic yet firm. But you're taking the right steps by reaching out for help. We can build a strong case against him. Maya felt a surge of hope. I just want to make sure he doesn't do this to anyone else. I want to expose him for who he really is. Monica nodded, her expression resolute. That's a powerful motivation. We'll gather evidence, testimonies, whatever we need to show the court the truth. It's time for you to take back your story. With each passing day, Maya felt herself growing stronger. She began to reconnect with friends, those she had lost touch with during her marriage. They welcomed her back with open arms, their laughter and support reigniting a spark within her that she thought had been extinguished. One afternoon, Maya met her best friend Julia for coffee at their favorite cafe. As they settled into a cozy corner, Maya felt a sense of comfort enveloping her. I can't believe how long it's been since we hung out like this, Julia said, a bright smile lighting up her face. I know, right? I missed this, Maya replied, her heart swelling with gratitude for the friendship that had remained steadfast despite the chaos of her life. Are you doing okay? Julia asked, her brow furrowing with concern. You've been through so much. Maya hesitated, but the warmth of Julia's presence encouraged her to open up. I'm trying to be okay. I've started to take steps to leave Damon for good. Julia's eyes widened. That's amazing, Maya. You deserve so much better than him. Maya felt a rush of emotion at her friend's support. I'm just scared, what if he retaliates? What if I'm not strong enough? You are strong, Maya. You've always been strong. And you're not alone in this. We're all here for you, Julia assured her, reaching across the table to squeeze Maya's hand. As they talked, Maya felt the weight of her fears begin to dissipate. With each word of encouragement, she felt more empowered to face the challenges ahead. She was ready to fight for herself, to reclaim her life from the clutches of manipulation and control. The days turned into weeks, and with Monica's guidance, Maya began to gather evidence of Damon's emotional abuse. Text messages, financial records, and testimonials from friends who had witnessed the changes in her behavior. Each piece of information fortified her resolve, transforming her pain into a weapon against him. One evening, as she sat in her room poring over a stack of documents, her phone buzzed with a message from Damon. The thought of him still sent a shiver down her spine, but she reminded herself that she was no longer the woman he had tried to control. Hey, we need to talk. I'm worried about you, the text read. Maya scoffed, a mix of anger and disbelief flooding her system. Worried after everything you've put me through, she muttered under her breath. She hesitated before typing, A response, but instead of engaging in his mind games, she decided to ignore him. She was done letting him dictate her emotions. That night, as she lay in bed, Maya reflected on the journey she had embarked upon. She had started as a woman who felt trapped by her own choices, but now she was becoming someone new, someone stronger, more resilient. With every step she took away from Damon, she was reclaiming her identity, and it felt exhilarating. In the following days, Maya continued to build her case, fueled by a newfound sense of purpose. She envisioned not only her own freedom, but also the possibility of helping other women like her who had been silenced by their partners. She began to formulate ideas for a support network, a way to empower those who felt powerless. Maybe one day I can turn this pain into something meaningful, she whispered to herself, a flicker of hope igniting her spirit. With determination in her heart and a fire in her soul, Maya was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She would not be defined by her past, she would be the architect of her future. The dimly lit restaurant was a world away from the chaos of Maya's life. Ornate chandeliers cast a warm glow over the plush velvet seating, and the soft murmur of upscale conversations created a cocoon of sophistication. Maya Caldwell sat at a table for two, her heart racing. She had chosen this place deliberately, hoping the ambiance would help facilitate a much-needed conversation with Damon. She wore a stunning black dress that hugged her figure, perfectly paired with a delicate silver necklace that shimmered against her skin. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight, she would set boundaries. As she glanced around, her thoughts drifted back to the early days of their relationship, when Damon had effortlessly charmed her with his charisma and vision for the future. It was a stark contrast to the man who had begun to emerge over the past few months, one who seemed increasingly possessive and controlling. She pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the promise of the evening. Damon arrived punctually, his tall frame cutting a striking figure as he made his way to her table. He flashed a smile that was both warm and disarming. "You look incredible," he said, leaning down to plant a quick kiss on her cheek. "Thanks," Maya replied, attempting to mirror his enthusiasm. "I thought we could use a nice dinner to unwind and talk." "Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this all week." He slid into his seat, his eyes scanning the menu before settling on her. "Let's order some wine. You know I can't resist a good Cabernet." Maya nodded, but as she watched him order without consulting her, a familiar unease washed over her. She had hoped for an evening where they could share decisions, yet here he was taking charge as usual. "Actually, I was thinking we could try the Pinot Noir instead. It pairs really well with the steak." Damon's smile faltered for a moment. "Sure, if that's what you want," he replied, his voice smooth but laced with a hint of irritation. Maya felt a flicker of doubt, but pushed it aside. They were here to talk after all. The evening progressed, and the food arrived, each dish a work of art. They clinked their glasses together, the sound echoing in the intimate space. "To us," Damon said, his smile returning, "and to all the great things ahead." Maya forced a smile, but the words felt heavy in her mouth. She needed to address the issues that had been piling up like a stack of unwashed dishes. "Damon, can we talk about something important?" she ventured, her heart pounding. "Of course. What's on your mind?" He looked genuinely interested, but she could see the flicker of defensiveness in his eyes. "I've been feeling like I'm losing myself a bit. You've been making a lot of decisions for us lately, and I want to be more involved." She took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice steady. Damon's expression shifted, a shadow crossing his features. "What do you mean? I thought you liked how I take charge. It's a partnership, right? I'm just trying to do what's best for us." Maya felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "I appreciate that, but it feels like you're not really considering what I want. It's important to me that we make decisions together." He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Maya, you're making a big deal out of nothing. I'm just trying to help. You've got so much on your plate with work, I thought you'd want me to take care of the details." "That's just it, Damon. I can handle my own responsibilities. I want to be a part of our life together, not just a passenger in it." "Passenger, that's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" He scoffed, the lightness of the evening quickly dissipating. Maya felt her hands clench under the table. "I don't think it's dramatic at all, it's how I feel." Her voice wavered slightly, but she pushed through. I want us to be equal partners. Damon's brow furrowed, and for a moment, Maya thought she might have reached him. But the moment passed, replaced by a coolness that sent a chill down her spine. Equal partners. You make it sound like I'm trying to control you. That's not it at all. Then why do I feel like I'm constantly fighting to be heard? Maya shot back, her heart racing. I've tried to communicate this before, but it's like you're not even listening. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a lower tone that felt menacing in the otherwise elegant atmosphere. Maya, you need to understand how this works. I care about you more than anyone else in this world. I'm only pushing because I know what's best for you. Best for me or best for you? Maya's voice rose, drawing the attention of nearby diners. She took a deep breath to regain her composure. I just want to feel like you respect my opinions and choices. Damon's eyes narrowed, and a flicker of anger flashed across his face. You think I don't respect you? You're the one who's being unreasonable right now. Maya felt the heat rising in her cheeks. I'm not being unreasonable, Damon. I'm trying to have an adult conversation with you. He scoffed again, shaking his head. Fine. If you want to be so stubborn about this, let's just drop it. But don't come crying to me when you realize you're overthinking everything. Maya's heart sank. The man she had fallen in love with was slipping away, replaced by someone she barely recognized. I'm not overthinking anything. I'm trying to be honest with you. Honesty, is that what you call it? Damon leaned closer, his voice dropping dangerously low. You're just being dramatic. You always have to be right. It's exhausting. The words hit her like a slap. Exhausting. Was that how he viewed her? She felt the tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I just want to feel valued in this relationship, Damon. His expression hardened, and for a moment Maya feared she had crossed a line. You want to feel valued. Maybe you should start by being more realistic about what this relationship entails. You're not the only one with dreams and aspirations. The tension hung thick between them, and Maya's heart raced. You're right, but that doesn't mean you get to dismiss my feelings. I deserve to be treated with respect. Respect? He echoed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You think you deserve respect just because you're a Caldwell. You're not special, Maya. You're just like everyone else. The words cut deeper than she anticipated. A wave of humiliation washed over her, and her throat tightened. She could feel the eyes of the other diners on them, the weight of the moment suffocating. I didn't mean it like that, she stammered, searching for something to hold on to. You just what? He leaned back, crossing his arms again, a smug look on his face. You want to play the victim, is that it? Maya's heart raced as the anger bubbled inside her. I'm not playing the victim, I'm standing up for myself. Damon's expression shifted, and in an instant the man she had fallen for was gone, replaced by something darker. You need to know your place, Maya. I'm the one in charge here. The words echoed in her mind, and suddenly the evening turned from a romantic dinner into a battleground. I refuse to accept that, she said firmly, her voice rising. This isn't about control. It's about partnership, and I won't allow you to take that away from me. Partnership, he scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain. You think you're entitled to that? You're nothing without me. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Maya felt her heart drop, the weight of his contempt crashing down on her. How can you say that? She whispered, her voice trembling. I've built my career and my identity on my own. Doesn't matter, he replied coldly. You're my wife now. You should be grateful for what I've given you. Grateful? She laughed bitterly, a hollow sound that echoed in the silence surrounding them. Is that what this is about? You think I owe you something for your so-called generosity. Exactly, you have everything because of me. Without me, you'd be lost. Maya felt the anger boil over, and before she could stop herself, she shot back, And what have you given me besides humiliation and control? His face twisted in rage, and in a split second, he reached across the table. The next thing she knew, the dessert plate, an exquisite chocolate soufflé, was flying through the air. Time slowed as she watched it arc toward her, and then it hit her square in the face, splattering chocolate and cream across her features. The restaurant went silent. The world around her faded as she sat frozen in shock, the cold dessert dripping down her neck. Gasps erupted from nearby tables, and the weight of humiliation crashed down on her like a heavy blanket. Damon stood up, his own face a mask of fury, mixed with something that looked almost like satisfaction. "You've embarrassed me enough tonight." He spat, his voice low and menacing. Maya stood at the front door of her childhood home, the familiar scent of lilacs wafting through the air, but it felt foreign now. The evening sun cast long shadows on the ground, and the warm light that once felt comforting now seemed to highlight the turmoil within her. She raised her hand and knocked softly, the sound echoing in the silence that surrounded her. Her mother Claire opened the door, her expression shifting from surprise to concern in an instant. "Maya," Claire exclaimed, pulling her daughter into a tight embrace. "I was so worried about you. Come in, come in." Maya stepped inside, her heart heavy with the weight of her recent experiences. The living room had remained unchanged, the same floral upholstery and family photos lining the walls. But as she looked around, it struck her how much had changed within her. The warmth of home didn't quite reach her, as it once had. It felt like a sanctuary and a prison all at once. "Maya, what happened?" Claire asked, her voice low and filled with worry as she led her daughter to the couch. Just look at you." Maya took a deep breath, her throat tightening. "I need to tell you everything, Mom." She felt the tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "I'm so ashamed." "Don't be. You're safe here," Claire assured her, squeezing Maya's hand. "Take your time." Maya nodded, swallowing hard. "Damon, he's not who I thought he was." The words tumbled out heavy and laden with emotion. "At first he seemed perfect. He understood me, made me feel seen, but it all changed." Claire's brow furrowed, concern etching deeper lines on her face. "What do you mean? What did he do?" Maya hesitated, the memories flooding back in vivid colors, the laughter, love the way Damon had looked at her at the beginning. But that was only a mask for the darkness that had lurked beneath. "He started making little comments about my work, about my appearance. It was all subtle at first. But then it turned into something else." "What kind of comments?" Claire pressed gently, her voice steady. "Like how I should dress more simply, or how I was too focused on my career." Maya replied, her voice trembling. "He wanted me to depend on him to give up my job. He said I had achieved enough. But I loved my work, Mom. It was what I was good at." Claire's eyes widened, a mixture of anger and disbelief crossing her features. "Maya, you are so talented. You worked hard for your career. He had no right to make you feel that way." "I know," Maya whispered, wiping a tear that escaped down her cheek. "But it was like I was losing my grip on reality. I started doubting myself. I thought maybe he was right, that I was too focused on my career." Claire shook her head, her voice firm. "That's manipulation, Maya. He was trying to control you. Did he ever put his hands on you?" Maya looked down, remembering the night Damon had gripped her arm tightly during a fight, the way his eyes had darkened. "Yes. Once he squeezed my arm and told me, 'You're married now. Things work differently.' It scared me, Mom." Claire closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "You shouldn't have to live in fear, my love. No one has the right to control you like that." Maya nodded, the weight of her mother's words grounding her. "I know that now, but it took a long time to see it. I let him isolate me from my friends and family. He made me believe they were toxic." "Maya, you're stronger than this. You have to fight back," Claire urged, her voice rising slightly. "What are you going to do?" "I came back here to think," Maya admitted, her voice cracking. "But I know I can't go back to him. I have to do something." "Good," Claire said, her eyes fierce with determination. "We can figure this out together. You're not alone." Maya felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. "I'm going to contact Monica Grant, the lawyer. I need help gathering evidence. He's been using my money for fraudulent investments, and I have to stop him before he can hurt anyone else." "Then let's do it," Claire affirmed, her voice resolute. "You've got a plan, and I'll support you every step of the way." Maya felt a surge of gratitude for her mother's unwavering support. "Thank you, Mom. I can't tell you how much this means to me." As they sat together, the weight of the past began to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose. Maya could see a path forming before her, a way to reclaim her life and her identity. That night, as Maya prepared for bed, she stood in front of the mirror staring at her reflection. She looked tired, worn down by the emotional toll of the last few months. But beneath it all, she saw a glimmer of the woman she used to be. It was time to embrace that woman again. The following day, with her mother by her side, Maya met with Monica Grant. The lawyer was sharp, confident, and immediately assessed the situation with a keen eye. "Maya, we're going to build a strong case," Monica said, her tone reassuring. "We'll gather everything we need to expose him for who he really is." Maya nodded, feeling a rush of determination. "I have some bank statements and emails that show his manipulations. I'll get everything together." "Good, Monica," replied, her eyes glinting with purpose. "And remember, you're not just fighting for yourself. You're also fighting for every woman who's been in a similar situation. We'll make sure he doesn't get away with this." Maya felt a wave of affirmation wash over her. "I want to help others who've gone through this too. I can't let him hurt anyone else." As the meeting wrapped up, Maya left the office with renewed vigor. The past few days had been a whirlwind of emotions, but now she felt like she was finally taking control of her narrative. No more silence, no more shame. She would stand her ground and fight for her freedom. Returning home, she shared her plans with Claire. "I'm going to start a fund to help women who have suffered in abusive relationships," Maya announced, her voice steady. "I want to help them find their strength again, just like I'm trying to." "That's an incredible idea, Maya," Claire said, her eyes shining with pride. "You're turning your pain into something powerful." "I just want to make a difference," Maya said earnestly. "I want to show that we can rise above this." Over the next few weeks, Maya and Claire worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and planning for the future. They reached out to local organizations that supported women in similar situations and began to brainstorm ways to create a support network. One evening, as they sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and notes, Maya looked up and caught her mother's gaze. "Thank you for being here, Mum. I couldn't do this without you." Claire smiled, her expression softening. "You're stronger than you realize, Maya. You've always had that strength within you. I'm just here to help you find it again." Maya felt a swell of emotion at her mother's words. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of clarity and purpose. She was no longer the woman trapped in a cycle of manipulation and fear. She was reclaiming her identity and her voice, and as she moved forward, she knew that this was just the beginning. She would no longer be defined by the shadows of her past. Instead, she would rise above it, stronger and more determined than ever. Maya stood in front of the mirror, her reflection a blend of determination and nerves. The soft morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting gentle patterns across her face. Today was the day she would finally confront Damon in the aftermath of their tumultuous relationship, and she was ready. The tailored suit she wore felt like armor. It was a small but empowering reminder that she had reclaimed her identity and her power. With a deep breath, she grabbed her purse and glanced at the framed photo on the wall. A younger version of herself beaming with hope and dreams. That girl had been lost for so long, but today she was stepping back into the light. She walked out of her parents' house with purpose, her heels clicking against the pavement, each step echoing her resolve. At the cafe where they agreed to meet, Maya chose a table in the corner away from the bustling crowd. She wanted to maintain a sense of control to ensure that Damon couldn't manipulate the situation in his favor. As she sipped her coffee, she scanned the room, her heart racing at the thought of their impending confrontation. Would he attempt to charm her again? Would he try to play the victim? Moments later, Damon entered the cafe with his usual swagger, but today it felt different. He glanced around, and when his eyes landed on Maya, they hardened. She felt a shiver run down her spine, but she stood her ground, meeting his gaze with unwavering confidence. "Maya," he said, forcing a smile as he approached. "You look different." "Different how?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. "More confident, more aware." He chuckled, but it sounded hollow. "You know I didn't mean it like that. Let's skip the pleasantries, Damon. I know why we're here." She cut him off, her voice steady. "You wanted to talk." "Talk? Is that what we're calling this? I thought we could work things out." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "We've been through so much together. You can't just throw all of that away. Maya felt her stomach twist. You mean I can't throw you away? You never cared about what we had, it was always about control. You wanted to mold me into someone I'm not. Damon's expression shifted, his charming facade slipping. That's not true. I supported you. I helped you. Helped me, she echoed incredulously. You took my money, manipulated my career, and tried to isolate me from the people who cared about me. That's not support, that's abuse. He scoffed, the mask of charm replaced by irritation. You're being dramatic, Maya. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. What do you want from me, an apology? Maya leaned back, crossing her arms. What I want is to make sure you can't hurt anyone else. I've gathered evidence, financial records, testimonies. I won't let you get away with this. Damon's eyes flickered with anger, but he quickly masked it with a forced smile. You really think you can take me down? You're just a woman with a vendetta. The world will see you as the bitter ex-wife, not the victim you're trying to portray. I'm not bitter, Damon. I'm strong, and I won't let you paint me as the villain anymore. Her voice was firm, cutting through the tension like a knife. You've underestimated me, and I won't let you continue to manipulate the narrative. He leaned in closer, his tone dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You think you're so clever, don't you? But the truth is, I know how to play this game too. I can make you look like the one who's unstable. You're the one who left me. Maya felt a surge of anger rise within her, but she forced herself to remain calm. You can try, Damon, but the truth is on my side. People are starting to see through your charade. Damon straightened, his demeanor shifting again, as if he were suddenly aware of the stakes. You're playing a dangerous game, Maya. You should be careful who you threaten. She met his icy gaze with a steely glare. I'm not afraid of you anymore. You can't intimidate me, not now. For a moment, silence enveloped them, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Damon's expression turned calculating. You really think you can take me down? I have connections, resources, people who could ruin you. Maya felt a chill run down her spine, but she pushed it aside. You're right about one thing. This is a game, but I'm not playing for revenge. I'm playing for my life and for the lives of other women you've hurt. He leaned back, a smug smile creeping onto his face. And what makes you think anyone will believe you? You're just another rich girl with too much time on her hands. Maybe, she replied, her voice steady. But I have something you don't. Truth and the support of people who care about me. I'm not alone in this. Damon's expression darkened, the facade of charm cracking further. You're making a big mistake, Maya. You don't know what you're getting into. Maybe you're the one who doesn't understand. She shot back, her heart pounding. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about breaking the cycle of abuse, and I'm not going to let you keep me silent. As she spoke, a wave of empowerment surged through her, pushing back the fear that had gripped her for so long. This was her moment to take control, to claim her narrative. Fine, Damon said, a sneer on his lips. If you want to play this game, let's see how far you're willing to go. I'll make sure you regret this. Maya stood up, her body tense with energy. You can try, but I won't back down. I refuse to be a victim any longer. With that, she turned on her heel and walked away from the table, leaving Damon staring. After her, the realization that he had lost his grip on her, evident in his expression. As she stepped out into the bustling street, the weight of the world lifted slightly from her shoulders. She felt like she was finally breaking free. Maya took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp air, feeling invigorated by the exchange. She had stood up to him, faced him head-on, and refused to cower in fear. The battle was far from over, but she knew she was no longer fighting alone. She had allies, friends, and family who supported her, and now she had a purpose. As she walked away from the cafe, Maya couldn't help but smile. She had taken a significant step forward in reclaiming her identity, and she wasn't going to let anyone, especially Damon, dictate her life any longer. The fight was just beginning, but she was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the truth and the strength she had rediscovered within herself. Maya stood in front of the mirror, the soft light of the dressing room illuminating her features. The reflection staring back at her was not just the woman who had walked into this courthouse months ago. This was a new Maya, a woman forged in the fires of betrayal and resilience. She adjusted her blazer, a deep navy that hugged her frame, imparting a sense of authority. Today was not just another day, it was the culmination of her fight, a battle against the man who had sought to strip her of her identity. "Are you ready?" Monica's voice broke through Maya's thoughts. The lawyer entered, the room her expression a blend of focus and encouragement. Maya took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I think so," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I just keep thinking about the way he used to look at me, like I was just a trophy to be displayed." Monica nodded, understanding the weight of Maya's words. "That was never who you were. Remember, you're not that woman anymore. You've rebuilt yourself, and today you're going to show the world exactly who you are." Maya swallowed hard, nodding. "You're right. I'm not that woman anymore." She straightened her shoulders and stepped out of the dressing room, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. As they made their way to the courtroom, the ambient noise of the courthouse felt distant, as if Maya were moving through water. She took in the familiar surroundings, the polished wooden benches, the imposing judge's bench, the hushed whispers of onlookers. It was all so surreal. Just months ago she had been trapped in a web of manipulation, and now she was here to untangle it all. Entering the courtroom, Maya's eyes scanned the room. There sat Damon, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that only emphasized his carefully crafted persona. He smiled at her, a smile that once seemed charming, but now felt like a mask hiding something sinister. The sight made her stomach churn. "Let's take our seats," Monica said, guiding Maya toward the plaintiff's table. Maya felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins as she sat down facing Damon. The judge entered and the room fell silent. "Court is now in session," the bailiff announced. The gavel struck, and with it came the weight of the moment. As the proceedings began, Monica stood to outline their case. "Your Honor, today we present evidence that not only highlights the emotional and financial abuse my client suffered at the hands of Mr. Sinclair, but also reveals his deceptive practices that have harmed not just Maya, but potentially many others." Maya watched as Monica confidently laid out their evidence, bank statements, text messages, and testimonies from friends who had witnessed the gradual erosion of Maya's independence. Each piece felt like a puzzle slotting into place, revealing the true picture of her relationship with Damon. "Your Honor, I would like to call Maya Caldwell to the stand," Monica said, her voice firm. Maya's heart raced. This was it. As she approached the witness stand, every step felt heavy with expectation. She took a deep breath and sat down facing the court, Damon's piercing gaze boring into her. She gripped the edges of the stand, feeling the cool wood beneath her fingertips. "Miss Caldwell," Monica began, her tone gentle yet assertive. "Can you please describe your relationship with Mr. Sinclair before the events that led you to this courtroom?" Maya cleared her throat, her voice steadying. "At first it felt like a dream. Damon was charming, and he made me feel like I was valued for who I truly am. But as time went on, things changed. He started making comments about my appearance and my career, subtly criticizing me and trying to mold me into someone I wasn't." Monica nodded encouragingly. "Can you give us an example of that?" Maya hesitated, recalling the many instances she had brushed aside. "There was a time when I wore a dress I loved to a charity event. Damon said it was too much and that I should tone it down. It was as if he wanted to control how I presented myself to the world." A murmur rippled through the courtroom, and she glanced at Damon. His expression was unreadable, but she could feel the tension radiating off him. "Did you notice any changes in his behavior as your relationship progressed?" Monica pressed. "Yes," Maya replied. "He started isolating me from my friends and family, convincing me that they were toxic influences. He would take control of our finances, making decisions without consulting me. I felt like I was losing myself." "Did he ever resort to physical intimidation?" Monica asked, her voice steady but firm. Maya took a deep breath, recalling the fear that had gripped her during those moments. "Yes, once, during an argument, he grabbed my arm tightly. He said, 'You're married now. Things work differently.' I felt trapped." The courtroom was silent, and Maya could feel the weight of every gaze upon her. She was no longer the woman Damon had tried to control. She was reclaiming her narrative piece by piece. "Thank you, Maya," Monica said gently before stepping back. The tension in the air was palpable as Damon's attorney stood to cross-examine. "Miss Caldwell, you've painted a rather dramatic picture," he began, his tone condescending. "Isn't it true that you often exaggerated your feelings in order to gain sympathy from others?" "Exaggerated?" Maya's voice rose, fueled by anger. "I'm not exaggerating anything. I lived it. You have no idea what it's like to feel your own identity slipping away. Is it also true that you benefited financially from your marriage?" he continued, ignoring her outburst. "You're well aware that the lifestyle you enjoyed was a product of Mr. Sinclair's success, correct?" Maya inhaled sharply, the implications of his words striking a nerve. "I worked hard for my career. I built my reputation as a strategist, and it was my talent and determination that got me where I am today, not Damon's influence. Yet you chose to marry him. You knew the risks." He pressed a smug smile on his face. "It was a different time," Maya shot back, her pulse racing. "I believed in our relationship. I thought he loved me for who I am, not for what I could give him." The attorney leaned in, his voice low and mocking. "But ultimately it was your decision to marry him, was it not?" "Yes, it was," Maya replied, her voice steady. "But love should never come with conditions, nor should it involve manipulation and control. I am not responsible for his actions." The attorney's expression faltered slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "No further questions, Your Honor." Maya stepped down from the stand, her heart pounding, but she felt a sense of liberation. She had spoken her truth, and for the first time she felt a flicker of hope. As the proceedings continued, Maya watched Damon's demeanor shift. The confident facade began to crack, revealing the underlying anxiety that had been brewing beneath the surface. It was almost satisfying to witness. The judge called for a recess, and as the courtroom emptied, Maya felt a surge of adrenaline. She had faced Damon and the lies he had spun around her. She had reclaimed her voice, and now it was time to see this through to the end. In the hallway, Monica approached her. "You did incredibly well, Maya. You stood your ground, and it showed." "Thank you," Maya replied, a smile breaking through her tension. "I just hope it's enough." "It is. You've laid the foundation for a strong case. Now we just need to finish it." Maya nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. This was her fight, and she was ready to see it through. As they returned to the courtroom, Maya took one last deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. She could do this. She would do this. This was not just about her, it was about every woman who had ever felt trapped and silenced, and she was ready to be the voice that echoed for them all. The sun hung low in the sky as Maya Caldwell walked. Through the bustling streets of New York City, the crisp autumn air biting at her cheeks. She had spent the morning with Monica Grant, her attorney, poring over documents and discussing the upcoming court date. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her, but today a flicker of hope ignited within her. She was ready to reclaim her life. As she turned the corner onto a quieter street, she spotted a small cafe that had been a favorite of hers. During her college days, the familiar scent of fresh coffee and pastries wafted through the air, beckoning her inside. Just a few weeks ago, she would have hesitated at the thought of being alone in a public place, but now she embraced the solitude, relishing the quiet moment to gather her thoughts. Stepping inside, she was greeted by the cheerful barista behind the counter. "Maya, it's been a while the usual," he called out, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Yes, please," she replied, her heart swelling with nostalgia. The cafe felt like a sanctuary, a space where she could momentarily forget the chaos of her life. As she waited for her coffee, she pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages from her family and friends. They had been her lifeline throughout this tumultuous journey. A particular message from her mother made her smile. "Remember, you're stronger than you think. We love you." Lost in thought, she barely noticed when a familiar face entered the cafe, causing her heart to race. It was Damon Sinclair, his tall frame instantly commanding attention. He looked different, disheveled, as if the weight of the world was pressing down on him. The confident smirk that usually accompanied his presence was absent, replaced by a tense expression. "Maya," he said, his voice a mix of surprise and disdain. What a coincidence. Damon, she replied coolly, trying to mask her discomfort. I didn't expect to see you here. He stepped closer, his eyes scanning her face, searching for something, maybe vulnerability. You look, well, better than the last time I saw you, at least. Maya clenched her jaw at the veiled insult. Thank you. I'm doing well, actually. Good to hear. I've been meaning to reach out, he said, his tone shifting to a more conciliatory one. I thought maybe we could talk clear the air. Talk, Maya echoed, incredulous. About what? The humiliation you caused me, the way you manipulated everything in our lives. Damon sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but this whole situation has spiraled out of control. I never meant for things to get this far. Maya narrowed her eyes, her heart racing. You never meant for things to get this far. You threw dessert in my face, Damon. You have no idea what I've been through since that night. He stepped back, his expression shifting from frustration to something resembling regret. I was angry. I reacted poorly. But can't we what pretend everything is fine, go back to the way things were? She shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. There is no going back. You've shown your true colors, and I'm done playing your games. Damon leaned in closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. Maya, I can help you. We can fix this. You don't need to go through with the court case. Think about what you'll lose. This is not just about you, it's about us. Us, she interrupted, her voice rising. There is no us anymore, Damon. You made sure of that. You turned our lives into a nightmare, and now you want me to come back to you? It doesn't work that way. He took a step back, his facade of calm cracking. You're being dramatic. I was under pressure. You have to understand that. No, you need to understand that I won't be manipulated anymore. Maya's resolve hardened. I've spent far too long being controlled by you. I won't let you do that to me again. With that, she turned to leave, but Damon grabbed her wrist, his grip firm, yet not aggressive. Maya, please, just give me a chance to explain. She pulled her arm away, her heart racing with a mix of anger and fear. You've had your chances. I'm not interested in hearing your excuses anymore. As she walked out of the cafe, she felt the weight of his gaze on her back, a mixture of fury and desperation. The moment she stepped onto the street, she inhaled deeply, the cool air filling her lungs. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. Later that evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by documents and evidence that Monica had helped her gather. Each page told a story: financial records, text messages, and testimonies from friends who had witnessed Damon's manipulations. She felt empowered, the fire within her reigniting as she organized everything for the upcoming court date. Then her phone buzzed, breaking her concentration. It was a message from Monica. Are you ready for tomorrow? Remember, you are not alone. Maya smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude for the support system she had built around herself. I'm ready, she typed back, her fingers flying over the screen. I'm finally ready to take control. As she prepared for bed that night, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, she saw strength reflected back at her. She no longer felt like the shadow of the woman she once was. She was reclaiming her identity, piece by piece. The following morning, the courtroom loomed ahead like a fortress, its imposing structure a stark reminder of the battle that lay ahead. Maya adjusted her blazer, taking a deep breath as she stepped inside. The air felt thick with tension, but she held her head high, determined not to let fear consume her. Monica was already there, reviewing her notes. You've got this, Maya. Just remember to speak your truth, she encouraged, her voice steady and reassuring. Maya nodded, her heart pounding as she took her seat. As the proceedings began, she felt a strange mix of anxiety and calm wash over her. This was her moment, to be heard, to finally confront the man who had tried to strip her of her identity. When Damon entered the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted. He walked in with an air of arrogance, but Maya noticed the slight tremor in his hands, the way his eyes darted nervously around the room. For the first time, she felt a sense of power. As the judge called the court to order, Maya clenched her fists under the table, ready to dismantle the lies Damon had woven. With each passing moment, she felt stronger, more resolute. The battle wasn't just for her, it was for every woman who had ever felt trapped, manipulated, or silenced. And in that moment, Maya Caldwell knew she was ready to fight. She was ready to reclaim her life. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a golden hue over the city, Maya Caldwell sat at the small cafe table, her fingers wrapped tightly around a steaming cup of chamomile tea. The warmth seeped into her hands, but it did little to soothe the tempest brewing inside her. Across the table, Damon Sinclair leaned back in his chair, his expression a mixture of feigned patience and simmering frustration. "Maya, can we just talk about this?" he implored, his voice low and smooth, as if he were trying to charm her back into submission. "I don't understand why you're making this so difficult. We can work things out." Maya took a deep breath, her heart racing as she recalled the events that had led her to this moment. The humiliation at the restaurant still stung, the way he had tossed that dessert in her face, the shocked gasps from the patrons. Each memory felt like a brand on her skin. "Work things out," she echoed, struggling to keep her voice steady. "How you think throwing food at me is something we can just brush off?" Damon's eyes narrowed slightly, the charm slipping away to reveal a flicker of anger. "You're overreacting. It was one moment. I was angry and I didn't mean it. You know how stressful things have been." "Stressful for whom?" Maya shot back, her resolve hardening. "For you or for me? Because I've been living under the weight of your expectations and your control for far too long." She leaned forward, her voice low but fierce. "This isn't about one bad moment, Damon. It's about everything that's been happening." He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. "I didn't mean to control you. I was just trying to help. You have so much potential, Maya. You could do so much more if you weren't so focused on work all the time." "Help," she repeated, incredulously. "You mean help me to become the person you want me to be? Because that's not helping. That's manipulation." The realization hit her like ice water. She had been living in a fog, convincing herself that his criticisms were for her own good. But now, with clarity slicing through the haze, she saw the truth. Damon's expression hardened and he leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You think this is easy for me. I'm trying to do what's best for both of us. You need to trust me." "Trust you?" Maya laughed bitterly, shaking her head. "You've taken control of my finances, isolated me from my family and friends, and now you're sitting here trying to convince me that it's for my own good. That's not love, Damon. That's control." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched across his features. "You're being dramatic. You know I care about you. I just want what's best for us." "What's best for us?" she scoffed, feeling her heart race as the anger bubbled up. "Maybe what's best for you is not what's best for me. You've turned our relationship into a prison, and I refuse to stay locked inside." For a brief moment, silence enveloped them, heavy and suffocating. Damon's eyes flickered, revealing a vulnerability that Maya hadn't seen in a long time. "What do you want, Maya?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "I want my life back," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I want to be me again, not the version of me you've created in your head." His expression shifted, a mixture of anger and something else, fear. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this. You'll see that no one else will want you the way I do." Maya's heart sank at the threat hidden in his words. "I'd rather be alone than with someone who doesn't respect me," she declared firmly, "and I'll find a way out of this with or without you." Damon's jaw clenched, and for a moment she saw the man she once fell in love with flicker behind the facade of anger. "You really think you can just walk away?" he asked, his voice low, almost a growl. "You'll never be free of me, Maya. You know that. I won't let you dictate my life anymore," she shot back, her heartbeat quickening. "I'm done being afraid of you." With that, she stood, her chair scraping against the cobblestones as she gathered her things. Damon reached out, gripping her wrist tightly. "You think you can just leave? You're making a huge mistake." Maya looked down at his hand, feeling the pressure of his grip and the heat rising in her chest. "Let go of me, Damon," she warned, her voice low but fierce. "You're not going to control me anymore." He hesitated for a moment and then released her wrist as if he had been burned. "You'll regret this," he repeated, his voice cold, the warmth gone. You won't find anyone who'll love you as I do. Love, is that what you call this? She shot back, her voice shaking with emotion. This isn't love. This is manipulation, and I won't stand for it any longer. Turning on her heel, Maya walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel his gaze boring into her back, but she didn't look back. Each step felt like a small victory, a reclaiming of her power. The streets felt alive with possibilities as she made her way to her parents' house, her heart racing with each step. She would not allow Damon to dictate her life any longer. She was ready to take control of her own narrative. When she arrived at her family's home, the familiar scent of lavender wafted through the air, and her mother's warm smile greeted her. "Maya, dear, you're back early," her mother said, concern flickering in her eyes as she noticed the tear stains on Maya's cheeks. "I need to talk," Maya said, her voice trembling. She stepped inside, the weight of her decision heavy on her shoulders, but her heart lighter than it had been in ages. "I need you to listen." Her mother nodded, her face serious as she led Maya to the living room. "Of course, sweetheart, what's going on?" Maya took a deep breath, and as she recounted the events of the past few months, Damon's controlling behavior, the humiliation at the restaurant, and the confrontation at the cafe, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Each word she spoke was a step away from the life she had been trapped in. As her mother listened intently, her expression shifted from concern to anger. "Maya, you deserve better than this," she said, her voice fierce. "You have always been strong and capable. You don't need anyone to define who you are." "I know," Maya replied, tears streaming down her face. "But I lost sight of that. I thought I was in love, that he saw me for who I really am. But he only wanted to mold me into his version of what I should be." Her mother reached out, pulling her into a comforting embrace. "You're not alone, Maya. We'll figure this out together. You're not going back to him." Maya pulled back, wiping her tears. "I want to fight back. I want to take control of my life again." Her mother nodded, pride shining in her eyes. "We'll find a way. You're not going to be a victim anymore." As they sat together, Maya began to plan her next steps. She would reach out to Monica, gather evidence, and prepare to confront Damon in a way she had never imagined possible. She would reclaim her life and her identity, turning her pain into power. And for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. She would not be defined by her past. She would rise above it. Maya stood in front of the mirror, her heart pounding in her chest as she adjusted the collar of her tailored suit. The reflection staring back at her was a woman transformed, no longer the timid partner of a controlling husband, but a fierce warrior ready to reclaim her life. Today was the day of the trial, and she could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. As she smoothed her hair and took a deep breath, she reminded herself of her purpose. This was not just about her. It was about every woman who had ever felt trapped in a relationship that stifled her spirit. As she stepped into the courthouse, the familiar tension in the air wrapped around her like a thick fog. The cold, sterile environment was a stark contrast to the warmth of the love she had once believed she shared with Damon. Now, as she walked down the polished marble hallway, she could see the echoes of her past traumas etched on the walls. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she pressed on, determined to face her demons head-on. In the courtroom, Maya was greeted by her attorney, Monica Grant, who stood with a confident poise, a reassuring presence amidst the chaos. "You're ready for this," Monica said, her voice steady. "Just remember, you're not alone. We've got solid evidence, and you've done the hard work to prepare for this moment." Maya nodded, trying to absorb Monica's words. "I know. It's just, I can't shake this feeling of dread. What if he tries to twist everything around? What if he makes me look bad?" Monica placed a comforting hand on Maya's shoulder. "He can try, but you have the truth on your side. Just tell your story and let the jury see who he really is." With a final deep breath, Maya took her seat in the plaintiff's chair. The courtroom was filled with a mix of onlookers, reporters, and lawyers milling about, but her eyes were fixed on the door, waiting for Damon's entrance. The moment he walked in, a wave of emotions crashed over her. Anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. He looked composed, dressed in a sharp suit that belied the monster he had become, but Maya knew better now. She could see through the facade. The judge entered, and everyone stood in respect. "You may be seated," the judge commanded, and the room fell silent. Maya's heart raced as the proceedings began. Damon's attorney stood and introduced their case, painting Damon as a victim of Maya's ambition and greed. "My client, Mr. Sinclair, is a hard-working architect who merely sought to support his wife's career while managing their finances for their mutual benefit," the attorney said, his voice dripping with condescension. "What we have here is a woman who has gone too far in her quest for independence, seeking to strip my client of his dignity and respect." Maya clenched her fists under the table, feeling the anger rise within her. "Dignity," she whispered, to herself, barely able to contain her rage. Monica noticed her agitation and leaned closer. "Stay focused, Maya. Just wait for your turn." The attorney continued detailing their version of events, twisting the narrative to paint Damon as a victim. The infamous incident at the restaurant was nothing more than a momentary lapse in judgment, a result of the pressure exerted upon him by Maya's relentless ambition. Maya couldn't hold back any longer. "That's not true," she shouted, surprising even herself. The courtroom turned to her and the judge raised an eyebrow. "Your Honor," she continued, her voice strong but trembling slightly, "I'd like to remind everyone that I am not the villain here. I was manipulated, isolated, and abused. This trial is about revealing the truth of what really happened." The judge nodded, allowing her to speak. "Proceed," he said, gesturing for her to take the stand. As she walked up to the witness stand, she felt the weight of every eye on her. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself, recalling the countless nights she had spent preparing for this moment. "My name is Maya Caldwell, and I was married to Damon Sinclair," she began, her voice steady. "What you're hearing today is his version of events, but I want to share my truth." She spoke of their initial romance, the charm that Damon had exuded, how he had seemed to understand her in a way no one else did. But as the months passed, she recounted the subtle manipulations, the comments that chipped away at her self-esteem, the control he had asserted over her finances. "He made me feel like I was lucky to have him, that I should be grateful for every decision he made for us," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But in reality, he was taking everything from me, the friendships, my career, my very identity." The jury listened intently as Maya detailed the incident at the restaurant, the humiliation, the shame, and the moment she realized that she needed to escape. "When he threw that dessert in my face, it was not just an act of anger, it was the culmination of everything he had done to me," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I realized then that I was no longer the woman I had once been. I was someone he had molded into his ideal, and I had lost myself in the process." As she spoke, she could see Damon fidgeting in his seat, his expression shifting from calm to defensive. Her words were having an impact, and for the first time she felt a flicker of hope. "I'm here today, not just for myself, but for every woman who has ever felt trapped," she declared, her voice rising with passion. "I want to ensure that no one else has to endure what I did. He may have thought he could control me, but I refuse to let that happen any longer." After she finished her testimony, Monica stood for cross-examination. "Maya, could you clarify how Damon's actions impacted your career?" she asked, her tone encouraging. "He constantly belittled my achievements," Maya replied, her voice firm. "He would undermine my successes, suggesting that I was too focused on work and not enough on our relationship. He made me feel guilty for wanting to excel professionally." Damon's attorney interjected, "Isn't it true that you were the one who chose to prioritize your career over your marriage?" Maya took a deep breath, her heart racing. "I prioritized my career because I was made to feel that my ambitions were a burden, but I was also trying to maintain a sense of self in a relationship that sought to erase me. I needed to prove to myself that I could succeed despite his attempts to hold me back." The courtroom buzzed as she spoke, and she felt a rush of adrenaline. This was her moment. She was reclaiming her power one word at a time. After several more questions, Monica wrapped up the examination. "Thank you, Maya. No further questions." As she stepped down from the stand, she caught Damon's eye. His expression was a mask of anger and disbelief, but she felt a sense of triumph washing over her. As the trial continued, Maya could sense the tide shifting in her favor. The jury seemed captivated by her story, and the evidence Monica presented was irrefutable. Each witness corroborated her account, painting Damon as a manipulative figure who had exploited Maya's vulnerability. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. The jury deliberated for what felt like an eternity. With each tick of the clock, Maya's anxiety grew, but she reminded herself of the strength she had found within. She was no longer the woman who would allow herself to be silenced. When the jury re-entered the courtroom, the tension was palpable. The foreman stood, clearing his throat. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Damon Sinclair, guilty of financial manipulation and emotional abuse." Maya felt her heart soar. The weight of years of pain and struggle lifted from her shoulders as a wave of relief washed over her. Damon's face twisted in disbelief, and she couldn't help but feel a surge of vindication. As the courtroom erupted in whispers, Maya's eyes filled with tears of joy. She had done it. She had faced her fears, stood up for herself, and emerged victorious. The journey had been long and arduous, but she was finally free. Later, outside the courthouse, as reporters swarmed and cameras flashed, Maya stood tall, flanked by Monica and her family. "Today is not just a victory for me," she said, her voice steady and clear. "It's a victory for all women who have been silenced. We have the power to reclaim our lives, to stand up against abuse, and to support one another. This is just the beginning." With that, she turned away from the chaos, ready to embrace a new chapter in her life. The future was bright, and for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. She was no longer defined by her past. She was a woman reborn, ready to help others find their strength and rebuild their lives.